The most sinful signs of the zodiac. They are bad. There are those whom even other signs fear. Their energy is dark, sharp, and dangerous, as if fate itself has given them power over the weak. They do not forgive, do not forget, and never show their true emotions. These people do not need magic to control others. One glance, one word is enough, and everything around them changes. They can destroy or save, but they always act according to their own rules. They are called the most sinful of all. Who are these signs that carry a dark fire within them? Who is capable of smiling when others fall? And why has fate so generously endowed them with a power that frightens even the most experienced astrologers? Stay here, because what follows is the shocking truth about those who were born to walk through the world, not with love, but with power. Subscribe now so you don't miss the revelation of the darkest sides of the zodiac, the things they hide even from themselves. The first sign of Libra. Libras have a reputation for being refined and fair, but behind this facade often lies one of the most insidious forms of sin: cold calculation disguised as balance and diplomacy. They are adept at creating the illusion of balance, but inside they are capable of deliberately manipulating people, situations, and outcomes. Their main vice is duplicity. Libras skillfully say one thing, think another, and act in a way that is only beneficial to them. They rarely engage in open conflict, but they shamelessly exploit the weaknesses of others, pushing events in the right direction with someone else's hands. This is not a direct blow, but a subtle pressure that is difficult to prove, but impossible not to feel. Their inner need to be liked turns into a dependence on approval. In order to preserve their image of perfection, Libras are capable of betraying their own promises, changing their position, and distorting facts. They easily justify their actions with considerations of the common good, although in reality they are guided by personal gain. This gives rise to another deep sin: moral flexibility. Where others choose principle, Libras choose comfort. They may express sympathy in words, but at the decisive moment, they will distance themselves if the situation threatens their reputation or stability. Libras are rarely openly cruel. Their cruelty is intellectual. They are capable of destroying a person not with shouting, but with doubt, not with pressure, but with a pause, not with aggression, but with silence. Their insults are always disguised as politeness. Their blows are used as arguments. This makes them dangerous because people do not realize for a long time that they are under their influence. Libras are good at sensing the weaknesses of their interlocutors and exploiting them precisely, without excessive emotion, but with great accuracy. A separate dark side of Libras is their tendency to postpone responsibility. They can balance between decisions for years, avoiding a clear choice, shifting the consequences to circumstances or other people. This is the sin of passivity, which is no less destructive than active cruelty. When action is expected of Libras, they weigh their options. When words are expected, they remain silent. When truth is expected, they speak in half tones. This position allows them to maintain an image of purity, but leaves behind a trail of disappointed and exhausted people. Libras are also prone to internal pride, disguised as modesty. They sincerely believe that they see the situation more deeply than others, that their sense of balance gives them a moral advantage. Because of this, they may devalue other people's decisions, calling them ill-considered, too harsh, or emotional. In their view, they themselves are the only point of balance in the chaos, and this belief becomes a justification for control, interference, and covert manipulation. Another serious sin of Libras is emotional coldness at critical moments. They can be charming, attentive, and caring until circumstances require sacrifice. When the time comes to pay with their own comfort, their involvement fades away. They do not like to lose benefits, status, or stability. That is why they are often surrounded by people who feel used but cannot pinpoint the moment when it happened. Libras are capable of living with double standards, skillfully combining high demands on others with soft excuses for themselves. They know how to speak convincingly about justice, but in their own decisions, they often choose what brings more profit, even if it contradicts their stated principles. This creates an internal dissonance, which they drown out with rationalization rather than rethinking. Despite their outward calm, Libras are constantly struggling internally between image and essence. They are afraid of losing control over how they are perceived, and are willing to sacrifice sincerity to maintain that control. Their wickedness is not loud, harsh, or obvious. It is quiet, cold, intelligent, and therefore particularly dangerous. Libras rarely destroy directly, but often become the ones who set destructive processes in motion, remaining on the sidelines and maintaining the appearance of an observer. The second sign is Scorpio. Scorpio enters any space as a threat, even when silent. Its main sin is conscious cruelty, combined with cold intelligence. It does not harm accidentally. Every blow, every word, every silence has a purpose. Scorpio is rarely impulsive in evil. It is always precise. Its dark side is its ability to see the most vulnerable places of others and strike exactly where the pain will be deepest. It does not destroy superficially. It works on the essence, on the nerves, on fear, on dependence. Scorpio is prone to total control. He is drawn to controlling not things, but people, their decisions, emotions, and weaknesses. He cannot tolerate uncertainty, does not accept equality, and does not tolerate the freedom of others. In relationships, Scorpio often acts through attachment, creating dependence through care, passion, and protection, and then holding the person back with fear of loss. This is one of the most serious sins of this sign, depriving another of their inner autonomy without overt violence. A particularly dangerous trait of Scorpio is hidden vindictiveness. They can remain silent for a long time, appear indifferent, and demonstrate calmness, but inside they accumulate insults, humiliation, and losses. When the moment comes, their retribution always exceeds the initial damage. Scorpios do not know the meaning of enough. They bring the matter to the complete destruction of their opponent's position. Reputational, financial, psychological. Their revenge is rarely loud. More often, it is systematic and drawn out over time. Scorpios are also prone to moral radicalism. For them, people are either friends or enemies. There are almost no shades of grey. This way of thinking breeds fierce internal aggression toward those who do not meet their expectations. They cannot tolerate weakness, do not forgive mistakes, and easily switch from idealization to devaluation. Yesterday's ally can quickly become completely worthless to him, deserving neither a word nor sympathy. For Scorpio, manipulation is not a tool for survival, but a form of power. He knows how to create a fog of information, substitute motives, and impose feelings of guilt, debt, or fear on others. He is adept at making people doubt their own decisions and distorting facts so that the version that is beneficial to him seems the only possible one. This is not chaotic lying, but a structured system of psychological pressure. Another sinful side of Scorpio is their tendency toward extremes. They don't know how to stop halfway. Their feelings are always at their peak. Their hatred is absolute. Their enthusiasm is all-consuming. In this extremity, they become hostage to their own dark impulses. But at the same time, they drag everyone around them into their inner storm. People around Scorpio often feel exhausted, tense, and in danger, even if everything looks stable on the outside. Scorpio does not like to be exposed. One of his deepest sins is total secrecy about his true motives. He can hide his true intentions for years, using trust as a resource. They tend to test people's strength, provoke them, and create conflicts to see who will stay and who will break. And based on these reactions, they make their own internal calculations. Scorpios often justify their dark deeds with the idea of justice. In his mind, he does no evil, he only restores balance at his own discretion. The problem is that this balance is almost always skewed in his favor. He sees only his own truth and almost never acknowledges the subjectivity of his own judgments. Remorse is a rare phenomenon for him, because admitting guilt means losing internal control. A field of tension often forms around Scorpio. People are drawn to him, but at the same time, he frightens them. They feel his strength, depth, and intensity, but very rarely, safety. His wickedness lies not in minor weaknesses, but in the scale of his influence. Scorpio does not harm accidentally or frivolously. He acts decisively, precisely, and without internal doubts. That is why those around him either change forever or disappear from his life forever. The third sign is Capricorn. Capricorn gives the impression of being reserved, responsible, and reliable. But behind this image lies one of the harshest characters. His main sin is ruthless pragmatism, in which people often become not a value, but a resource. Capricorn rarely acts emotionally. He thinks in terms of benefit, efficiency, and control. They are capable of making plans for years, using those around them as stepping stones to their own summit, without feeling any remorse if someone slips and falls along the way. Capricorns are not afraid of losing sympathy if it prevents them from moving forward. Their coldness is not a defense mechanism, but a conscious behavior style. They clearly distinguish between the useful and the superfluous, which makes them dangerous in any long-term relationship. When a person ceases to meet their standards or be necessary for the realization of their goals, Capricorns distance themselves without further explanation, disappear, or sever the previous connection. One of Capricorn's most serious sins is emotional stinginess. They are extremely reserved in showing warmth, support, and sympathy. Even with loved ones, they often treat them as subordinates, evaluating them through the prism of achievements, usefulness, and compliance with their expectations. They perceive the mistakes of others as a weakness that must be punished, rather than as a reason for understanding or helping. Because of this, people around Capricorn often feel internal pressure, fear of not meeting expectations, and constant tension. Capricorn is prone to hidden greed. This applies not only to material things, but also to power, status, and influence. He is never satisfied with what he already has. Even with stability, they are internally in a state of deficit, as if any pause is equivalent to defeat. This makes them tireless, but at the same time harsh towards themselves and others. They rarely allow themselves weakness, and just as rarely allow it in those around them. Another dark trait of Capricorn is a tendency to morally justify his own harshness. He is convinced that life is a competition where only the strongest survive, and therefore considers compassion a luxury or a mistake. He easily explains his harsh decisions with necessity, discipline, and order. Behind these words often lies a simple unwillingness to take responsibility for someone else's pain. Capricorns do not like it when someone undermines their authority. They perceive any attempt to question their rightness as a threat. In response, they may act coldly, systematically, and very harshly, devaluing, restricting access, creating conditions in which the opponent will gradually lose their position. They do not engage in open conflict unnecessarily, but if they decide to fight, they do so without emotion and without stopping. Their tendency to hold grudges deserves special attention. Capricorns rarely express dissatisfaction immediately. They keep everything inside, forming a long list of internal grievances. When the moment of rupture or distancing comes, it often seems unexpected and cruel to the other side. Capricorns appear indifferent at such moments, although the decision has been maturing for a long time. Capricorns are also prone to control through responsibility. They impose rules, standards, and obligations, forcing others to live according to their plans. This form of pressure seems right, but in essence, it deprives people of their freedom of choice. Capricorns are convinced that they know best, and rarely entertain the idea that their way may not be the only correct one. Their badness does not lie in emotional outbursts or harsh words. It lies in their systematicity, cold calculation, and willingness to sacrifice others for their own advancement. Capricorns do not destroy spontaneously. They build their advantage on the ruins of others' hopes, calmly, methodically, and without internal hesitation, leaving behind an image of a strong but emotionally devastated architect of their own power. The fourth sign is Cancer. Cancer seems soft, caring, and sensitive, but it is precisely in this image that one of the most dangerous forms of sin is hidden. Emotional blackmail, presented under the guise of love, affection, and sincere care. Its dark side is not sharp, loud, or demonstrative. It is slow, viscous, and destructive. Cancer knows how to bind people to themselves not through force, but by evoking feelings of guilt, debt, pity, and fear of loss. They rarely ask directly, but skillfully make people feel that without them, they become ungrateful, cruel, or heartless. Cancer's main sin is manipulation through emotion. They do not pressure with logic, argue with facts, or engage in open conflict. They work through moods, silence, insults, demonstrative distancing, and subtle reproaches. Cancer may not talk about what hurts him for days, but with every action he will make it clear that it has become difficult, depressing, and cramped around him. A person begins to feel guilty without even understanding why. This is one of the most exhausting forms of psychological influence. Cancer tends to accumulate resentment for years. They forget nothing, let nothing go, and erase nothing from their memory. In their inner space, there is an archive of all their pain, humiliation, and disappointment. And at the right moment, this archive opens. Cancer does not attack sharply. They bring up old wounds one by one, forcing the other person to justify themselves again and again for something that happened long ago. This turns any relationship with him into a field of constant psychological tension. Another dark side of Cancer is the role of the victim. He subconsciously builds situations so that he looks like someone who is constantly offended, underestimated, and used. This position gives him a moral advantage and the ability to control others through sympathy. People around Cancer often start to feel like they're always to blame, even if there's no real reason for it. Cancer knows how to make sure their suffering is always the center of attention. Cancer is also prone to hidden passive aggression. They rarely express their grievances directly, but instead act through sabotage, alienation, coldness, and sudden mood swings. Where honest conversation is needed, they choose to take offense. Where a decision is needed, they create an atmosphere of tense silence. This destroys slowly but deeply. Around Cancer, people often lose confidence in themselves and begin to doubt their own intentions and words. His connection to the past deserves special condemnation. Cancer lives with memories not as experiences, but as a tool of influence. He can idealize what has long lost its meaning, and at the same time use the past mistakes of others as leverage. They constantly compare then and now, making people feel that they have become worse, colder, or less attentive. This creates an atmosphere of constant emotional debt in relationships. Cancerians tend to control through care. They care for, interfere, advise, and impose their participation in the lives of others, often without asking permission. Outwardly, this looks like kindness, but inwardly it is a way to restrict the freedom of others. People close to Cancer gradually lose their sense of personal boundaries because any attempt to distance themselves is perceived as betrayal or indifference. This creates a dependency that is difficult to break without scandal and internal conflict. Cancer is also dangerous because of its volatility. Their mood can change dramatically for no apparent reason. What caused warmth yesterday may be a reason chastened for cold indifference today. People around him are constantly waiting for an emotional storm, not knowing which side of Cancer will show up today, the caring or the punishing one. His wickedness is not in open malice, but in systematic emotional pressure, masked as love, devotion, and sacrifice. Cancer rarely destroys directly, but often leaves people exhausted, devastated, and with a deep sense of guilt. He does not shout, threaten, or attack. He makes people destroy themselves from within, trying to earn his warmth, which is always given on certain conditions. The fifth sign is Aries. Aries enters any situation like a battering ram, without looking back at the consequences. And it is in this frontal force that his main sin is hidden, blind egocentrism mixed with aggressive confidence in his own righteousness. He is used to going first, but rarely looks at who he tramples on along the way. For him, the world is an arena where you have to win, prove yourself, impose your will, and break resistance. Aries cannot stand slowness, doubts, or other people's boundaries. He is used to taking what he wants right away, without asking permission or considering who it might hurt. His dark side is impulsive cruelty. Aries strikes with words, actions, and decisions before he realizes the extent of the damage. He can destroy relationships, reputations, and trust in a matter of minutes, leaving no room for correction. For him, an apology is not repentance, but a formality after the damage has already been done. He quickly gets fired up and cools down just as quickly, but the consequences of his outbursts linger for a long time. Aries is prone to dictatorship under the guise of sincerity. He speaks sharply, harshly, without filters, and often covers up his rudeness with directness. In reality, this is a form of domination, a desire to impose his will without compromise. He does not discuss, he declares. He does not negotiate, he demands. In his presence, people either adapt or leave, because there is almost no room for equal dialogue. A separate sin of Aries is the devaluation of weakness. He does not accept other people's fears, doubts, and vulnerability. Anything that does not correspond to his idea of strength, he considers a manifestation of worthlessness. Because of this, people around him often hide their emotions so as not to be humiliated. Aries easily ridicules, sharply criticizes, and brands those who cannot keep up with him. He rarely thinks that his encouragement is actually psychological pressure. Aries is dangerous because of his unpredictability in anger. His aggression can flare up over a trifle, a word, a glance, an intonation. At such moments, he sees no boundaries, feels no proportion, and does not calculate his strength. He is capable of saying the most hurtful things, striking at the weakest point, without thinking about the fact that some words are never forgotten. After the outburst, he may behave as if nothing serious has happened, but the other side is left with cracks that can no longer be repaired. Another dark trait of Aries is intolerance of any control over themselves, while simultaneously striving to control others. They do not recognize restrictions for themselves, but easily impose them on those around them. It is difficult for them to accept that someone has their own will, different decisions, and the right not to obey their impulses. When they encounter resistance, their aggression only intensifies. Aries often confuses strength with pressure. They do not distinguish between persuasion and coercion, support and imposition. Their behavior is forceful but lacks subtlety. They can destroy even what they sincerely wanted to protect, simply because they do not know how to act cautiously. His desire to act immediately deprives him of the ability to calculate the consequences at least a few steps ahead. Aries is also prone to internal pride, fueled by a sense of his own uniqueness. He often considers himself to be the one who has the right to more, to faster, to first place. This attitude makes him blind to the needs of others. He may not notice how people around him are exhausted, retreating, breaking down under his pace and pressure. For him, the main thing is to move forward, even if this movement runs on live nerves. His wickedness is not in cunning or cold calculation. It lies in his uncontrollable, boundless strength, in his habit of taking without permission, in his ability to destroy impulsively and without restraint. Aries rarely destroys intentionally, but very often does so unwittingly, not noticing that his rush forward has left people with nowhere else to go.